1 Kings 3 and 1. Bill, are you going to go make copies of anything?
I can.
Okay. Can you make copies of these 2 pages, about 20 apiece?
Each of these? Yeah.
And blow that one up if you can. That map. See the map in your right hand? If you can just blow up on that one,
You know how?
if you know how to do it.
Okay, put it down first.
All right.
You know how to do it.
That one there is very important. All right. Dr. John, it's good to have you in here. See, we didn't get started. We waited for you today.
I appreciate it.
All right. 3 and verse 1. We're going to let you read the first verse today.
Now Solomon made a treaty with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married Pharaoh's daughter. Then he brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house, and the house of the Lord, and the wall all around Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the people sacrificed in high places, because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days.
All right. Now, here we have a thing. They're sacrificing in high places. Okay? We find out these high places are a curse
Yeah.
later on, aren't they, Brother Rex?
Well, they had the tabernacles.
That's right.
Why didn't they use it?
Well, that's the problem. They still, every man did what was right in his own eyes so many times. Okay? Now, Solomon is going to try to consolidate everything. And one of the things that Solomon is going to do to try to consolidate everything is to build a temple. So that will be the place of worship. Period. They can't go out. Remember back in the tabernacle days now, back here during the tabernacle time, back at that period of time, back here, you couldn't even, out in the wilderness, you couldn't even slaughter a sheep or a goat or a cow on your own. Did you know that? You had to bring it to that tabernacle, and it had to be slaughtered there. You can keep your meat and everything else, but they could only slaughter it there. If you killed a cow at home, what was the penalty? Death. As if you killed a man. All right? Now, if you killed your own goat or your own sheep or your own cow at home, we're not even going to talk about pigs. You know, that's not, that were kosher. Okay? But if they killed one of them at home, it was a death penalty. Like you killed a man. They said, you will bring the animal here, and we will kill it, and we will kill it in a kosher way, kosher butchering, so it wouldn't be as much suffering as possible for the animal, and that its blood would not be eaten by them or drank by them, because where is the life? Life is in the blood. So when his blood was spilled out, and they would bury his blood with reverence, because this animal gave its life for them. Okay? Brother Rex.
You mean anytime, no matter if they was way over here and the temple was way over here, they had to bring it?
That's right.
Good night.
That's right.
I bet they didn't eat much meat.
Well, you know, meat didn't keep unless you, the American Indian, we had jerky and stuff. But meat basically doesn't keep. They could only keep it so many days. Fresh meat. The other day you had to take it out and burn it in the dump. All right, you can only keep it. The third day you have to go burn it. And don't bring any meat to the Lord that's tainted. Remember that? All right. Well, now Solomon is going to consolidate all of this stuff, and they're going to come here. Now, of course, after they got into the land of Israel, they did that. But in every place there were cities where there were priests and everything, and a priest usually looked over all of the butchering, even with all the cities. They didn't have to bring the animal to the temple anymore. And I try to give you a little bit in different things in my classes and share in different classes. I try to share in my Greek class. And by the way, I finished the book of Galatians on Wednesday night. We'll be doing the book of Romans next. The 3 races of mankind. I want to just throw this out to you. We're studying this on Sunday afternoon. But I'm going to share this with you so you'll understand. Shemites are spiritual people. Okay? The Shemites are spiritual. That's all they worry about, spirit, the spirit world. Okay? Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shemites are spiritual. Okay? What are these Jews? What are the Jews?
Shemites.
Shemites. All right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth, they're Shemites. Now they have some very special blessings coming upon them. The Lord said that they would be wealthy. And most of them will be wealthy without having to work hard for it. Just think about that. That's a blessing. All right? Now let's go, and even to this day, here we have these Shemites, right here. These are Shemites. All around here. And God multiplied them. All right? God had certain laws in the law, and you might wonder, weird thing, why they did this. Okay, the woman, when they had their monthly days, a man couldn't go near them or anything else. They were to be looked at as unclean. For one thing, a woman couldn't get pregnant then, could she? All right? So God would not allow them to do anything at that period of time because He wanted them to produce children. That's one thing that they're going to do, is to produce a lot of kids. And so a lot of those laws are set up for that purpose, that a woman would be fertile. And a woman wanted to have children, all right? Because that's the woman's children was what would support her when she got old. They didn't have any other supporting society, okay? There's so many things in there. And now we're coming down to Solomon. Solomon's going to be one of the richest cultures in the world ever. Did Solomon have to work for it? Think about it. Who did the work? Who did the work?
The people.
David.
The people.
But David did the work to
David.
make Solomon's reign. All right? David's reign is a type, it's a type of Christ's second coming. When He goes out and conquers the conqueror. All right? Like David was a great warrior, wasn't he? He was a great warrior. All right? Solomon's reign is a type of the millennial reign, where the Lord is enthroned because He has already won the battles. Okay? At the end here, this is where, at the tribulation period, this is when the Lord's going to come back. This is an epitome of David's powerful, the son of David, because Jesus is the son of David, and He brings all things under his power, and then He's the King of peace, like this, the reign of peace. Solomon, with the tip, he was an epitome of the type of the Shemite culture. God blessing them without having to work. And so He put all of His time in pleasure, didn't He? Okay? All in pleasure. All in education and instruction and everything else. But He is a spiritual person, supposedly, isn't he? The Shemites are spiritual. Now today, who are the Shemites in the world today? The spiritual people in the world today.
Well, the Muslims
It had to
claim
stop.
to be, but they're not.
What?
I see the Muslims claim to be, but they're not.
Well, they are. They're Shemites.
Most of them come from Ham.
Well, they're part Ham, but they're Shemites. They're Abraham's descendants.
No, just part of them.
Yeah. But, okay, now, who is Moab? Who is Moab? Moabites and the Ammonites. That's Lot's descendant. That's Abraham's nephew. They all have the same blood. They're all from Shem. They're all Shemites. Okay. Now you see some of them are darker than others. They got a little more. They got some Hittite blood in them or something else. Basically, the Hittites. You know who they became? From what most people think, the Chinese. All right. Let's go back to the Shemites now. The Shemites today are who? The Muslims are the Arabs and the Jews. Okay? Who are the richest people in the world today? The Jews and the Arabs. Do they have to work for it in all reality? Or does God just bless them? Well, them Jews sitting around over there, I mean, they do work and everything else, but God just blesses their hands. But how about the Muslims? With all of that oil. Now, all of those sons of Abraham, were all Shemites. They were different. And if you'll find out that Abraham married a Japhethite, he married a Shemite and a Hamite. Did you know that? 3 different wives from 3 different cultures. So Abraham's blood is in all their veins to some extent. All right? Now, the Jews and the Arabs, what's the most important thing to them in the world? What's the Jews' propaganda? That God gave this land to us. And then the Muslims' propaganda is that we believe in Allah and this is our land. And both of them will die to the last breath and to the last person for their religion. Why those Muslims go over there and blow themselves up without a shadow, without even a second thought? Spiritual. Even if it's wrong. Okay, now, Hamites. Hamites in the world today. All your darker races are Hamites. And the Negroids and the Mongoloids are Hamites in the world today. All right? And where is all the cheap labor in the world? Where is all our products coming cheap? Where all the cheap products come from? China, Indonesia, Taiwan. Okay? Does that tell you something? All right, and the Japhethites. The Japhethites took all of the inventions and improved upon them, and they masterminded them, and they're the thinkers. Those are the Greeks. There's the philosophers. All right? You see how the cultures come down? Now that's just in a nutshell. We're going to go into that deep on Sunday afternoon. That's just in a nutshell. Now let's go back to these Shemites now. All right? To the Shemites. We're down here, we're studying about old Solomon. And number 3, and Solomon loved the Lord. Boy, this is good. At this time. Brother Rex. 3 and 3. 1 Kings 3 and 3.
Now Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, except he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places.
He was doing the same thing. Now he was going to try to concentrate his culture, but we're going to find out something. That his wives greatly influenced him. All right. Brother David, number 4.
Now the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask, what shall I give you?"
All right, now here we go. This is a very important thing right here. How many of you were in my class on Wednesday when I talked about hypnosis? Hypnosis. All right. Our medical terms and all of our psychological terms in the English language comes from what language? Greek. In the Greek Septuagint, almost always, there is a couple other terms, but almost always, better write it in English, almost always, when it talks about sleeping or dreaming, it's hypnosis. Or hypnosate. When God put Adam to sleep in the garden, he hypnotized him. The Hamitic cultures invented all of the anesthesia, all the pharmaceuticals, and they also used hypnosis for when they were doing operations. They operated on brain surgery, all kinds of stuff back then, and they either used pharmaceutical drugs or they used hypnosis. Now, almost every time in the Bible, in the Septuagint, in the Old Testament, in the Greek Bible, where it talks about God appeared to anyone in a dream, when he appeared to Abraham in a dream, he hypnotized him. It was hypnosis. All right? When he appeared to Joseph in a dream, it was hypnosis. All right? When he appeared to Isaac, it was hypnosis. When he appeared to Jacob, Jacob's dream, you know, Jacob's ladder, you look it up in Greek, in the Greek Septuagint, and it's going to be hypnosis. Hypnosis. He hypnotized him and appeared to him. Daniel was hypnotized. Every one of them. All the way through. Now, how many of you have dreamed? Anybody here dream? You don't know how close to the spirit world you are when you're dreaming. All right, you don't know how close to the spirit world you are when you're dreaming. Indians used to seek communion with God, and they would have it in a vision. It's a hypnotic trance. When the white man introduced alcohol to the Indians and he got drunk, he thought he was in the spirit world. And the Indians said, don't mess with that cheap shortcut. It's not the real thing. Well, God appeared hypnosis. He hypnotized Solomon. He communed with Solomon in his dream, in the spirit world, so to speak. In the world of the spirit. All right? Let's look at this now. This is, you go back and you check these things. I got a Septuagint out there in the car. I'm going to bring it in today. All right. Number 3. Donka. So you got one of them?
No, I'll borrow one.
Oh, you want one?
I got one.
Oh, do you have this one?
Hey, I got
Very
it
important.
wrapped in that.
All right, thank you very much. All right. We're talking about the spirit world. Were you here, Joseph? You didn't leave with him, did you? All right, you can tell him about hypnosis, can't you? You can tell him all about hypnosis. All right?
No.
A little bit. Every time God appeared to a person, it was in hypnosis. The word hypnosis. All right? And here we have it when Solomon appeared. God appeared to Solomon. He hypnotized him. So he's under hypnosis. All right? Now let's see what Solomon did while he was under hypnosis. All right? 1 Kings 3. 3 and verse 5. Brother Brett. Are you know where that
Here's
is?
the next verse.
You're what?
Give me the verse after this one.
3 what?
Kings 3,
1 Kings 3 and verse 5.
Okay, I think I have it right here.
Okay, 1 Kings 3 and 5. That's that Episcopalian Bible, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
good one, huh? One of the good ones.
Well, I've never have been an Episcopalian,
I'm
but
just playing.
I can use it.
Okay, here we go. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream.
In what is that word?
The first one, Gibeon?
No, a dream. What's that word? Hypnosis. In a hypnotic trance. Okay, just put that in there in case of it, okay? Now go on.
Okay, in Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee. And
All
Solomon-
right, ask what I shall give you. Okay, ask what I shall give you. Now, young lady over there. Bill, what's your wife's name?
Yes.
Pickle Puss.
Joanne. Jim.
I don't know what her name is, Joanne. He wouldn't tell me, see, I knew it. All right, Joanne, young lady. 3 and verse 6. 3 and verse 6. That's a pretty good expanded. By the way, the Amplified Bible, not the Amplified Bible, but the Living Bible is almost a word-for-word translation of the Jewish Publication Society translation of the Old Testament.
Solomon replied, you were wonderfully kind to my father, David, because he was honest and true and faithful to you. And you have continued this great kindness to him today by giving him a son to succeed him.
All right, that's a pretty good expanded translation of that. Now, Anna, number 7.
Now, O Lord my God, you have made me king instead of my father David, but I am like a little child who doesn't know his way around. And here I am in the midst of your chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they cannot be counted.
All right. Oh, Lord my God. Brother Bill, do you have your Sacred Name Bible with you?
Is it supposed to be Catholic?
Aha. All right, get that one out right there. We know what that is. Okay, that's 1 Kings 3 and verse 7. First Kings 3 and 7.
Almost there.
Almost
First
there.
Kings 3 and verse 7.
Yeah.
Verse 9. It's verse 9.
Now
Well, no, I wanted him to
therefore,
read that other one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now therefore, O Jehovah, my Elohim,
All
thou
right,
hast
Jehovah
made
my
thy
Elohim. The Jehovah is the covenant God. Jehovah is Jesus. Jehovah is the one that signed the covenant with his blood. And see, Solomon knew who the covenant God was. Because that covenant God is the one that made the covenant with David also. And that through David would come forth the Messiah, Mashiach, the Messiah. All right. Thank you, brother. That's all I needed out of that. Now, number 9, Anna.
Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong.
All right.
For who by himself is able to govern his great people of yours.
All right, number 10 now.
The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for wisdom. So God replied, because you have asked for wisdom in governing my people with justice, and have not asked for a long life or wealth or the death of your enemies, I will give you what you asked for. I will give you a wise and understanding heart, such as no one else has had or ever will have.
All right. So he's going to give him a wise heart, and he's going to be able to judge. This was a gift of God. All right. Now this man started off real good, didn't he? Started off real good with a real great blessing. Okay. Brother David, where are you over there? Are you writing the next one?
13.
Uh-huh.
And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be anyone like you among kings all your days.
Now he's going to be like a type. This is going to be a type of Solomon, or the reign of peace, because he had no problems. The wars were already settled in Solomon's time. Okay, and that way it's a type. Okay, verse number 14, Brother Rex.
If you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments, as your father David walked, then I will prolong your days.
All right. If. Now what does that mean?
Hypothetical.
No.
Yes, a hypothetical.
Yeah, it's hypothetical. Yes, it is hypothetical. All right. But what is if? That's a condition, isn't it? It's a condition.
If he does it, then it'll happen.
So if it's a condition, it also means there are stipulations to this. And this is what we call a conditional covenant. A conditional covenant. Write that down there. That's a conditional covenant. Now the covenant with David about his heir being on the throne and the Messiah was an unconditional covenant. Do you realize that? But this one is conditional covenant. And who does this conditional covenant relate to only? Who does this conditional covenant relate to only? Solomon. Solomon. The unconditional covenant where there would always be an heir on the throne, and that heir would be forever.
So like Abraham was unconditional, right?
Abraham was unconditional covenant. Now this covenant with Solomon is conditional. All right? But God is going to keep him on the throne no matter what he does because of the unconditional covenant that he made with David. Now there is a difference here. This is really important. Some people just skip plumb over this. Okay? We'll look at it. Number 16 now.
16?
Number 16. Oh, no, 15. 15. We got to go back up to 15.
And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream.
All right. He did what? He was brought out of the hypnotic trance.
Right.
And behold, he had been in hypnosis. That's what it literally says. In the original language, he said he woke out of the hypnotic dream and he realized that he had a hypnotic dream or communication, hypnosis.
And he
All
came
right?
to see
It is ex heap nisthe, and the other one is in heap neon. All right, in Greek. All right, those are the two things. Then he was out. He was in a hypnotic trance, and he realized that he had been in this hypnotic trance. And he came to Jerusalem, all right? Who was reading that?
Me. And he came to the city of peace, and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up a burnt offering, and offered peace offerings, and made a feast of all his servants.
Okay. Now here we have the test. Now we have a test. Joanne, are you there?
Sometime later, 2 prostitutes came to the king to have an argument settled.
Okay, there's where we're going to go. Now, 2 prostitutes came to the king to have an argument settled. 2 prostitutes. Even the prostitutes had audience with this king. Did Jesus ever save any prostitutes?
Yeah.
He sure did. Well, some of them were his best, they were his best disciples, weren't they? Mary Magdalene. I mean, now they got all this movie out, you know, Mary Magdalene was immaculate and all this kind of baloney and had Jesus' baby and all that hogwash. Not true at all. She was a prostitute. She was a loose woman. Yes, brother.
The Bible doesn't say she was a harlot, though.
Well,
Says she had many demons.
yes, she was demonized, and she came from Magdalia. Magdalia was a seaport city type, so to speak, like these. Well, so much a seaport city, but a place where prostitutes were in the Bible days. And that was a city, that was a red light district. All right, she came from the red light district and she had a lot of demons. Okay, so what do you think she was? Pretty much. But she was very thankful too, wasn't she? Wasn't she one of the women? There was 2 women that washed Jesus with tears. 2, not just one. 2 different ones. And Mary Magdalene was one. All right. Maryland. Number 17.
The one woman said, "Oh my Lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth to a child while she was in the house."
Okay, now remember, even harlots had children. And even harlots would be taken care of when they were old by the children.
That's why they had the children.
That's why they had to have the children. Okay?
That was
Now-
their Social Security.
Huh? That was their Social Security. It sure was. That was their old age pension, was to have children. Okay? Remember Tamar? Remember, did we talk about Tamar here a while back? Did we talk about
something
Tamar?
about it. I don't remember.
Did we talk about Tamar? You know who Tamar was?
Isn't that a person, right?
Huh?
It's a lady or a person. Come on.
Huh?
It's a lady, I thought.
It was a woman. She was married to one of Judah's children. Married to one of Judah's children. And Judah had this child, and she married one of these. He gave her to be his wife, and he died because he was a wicked man. God killed him. And then he gave her to another one, and for a wife, and he was supposed to go mate with her and bring up a child. Well, when he did, he was practicing birth control, and God killed him. God killed him. Zip, he killed him because he was supposed to bring seed up for his brother. And there was one other one, and then Judah said, "Well, when he gets old enough, he'll be your, we'll raise seed up." And when the child got old enough to cohabit with Tamar, he didn't give her to her. And Judah was kind of a rough old character. He was a womanizer, okay? And Tamar knew that. That was her father-in-law. And so he was going to, his wife died meanwhile, and went out there in the country where he was going to go shear somebody's sheep and do all this kind of stuff. And she goes out there and she dresses up like a harlot. And he comes along and said, "Well, how much are you going to charge me?" And she said, "Well, how much are you going to get me?" And he said, "Well, I'll give you one of the young goats. You have a goat. What are you going to give me in the meanwhile?" And she said, "Well, what do you want?" He said, "I want your ring, your signet ring, I want your staff, and I want your belt." And that was all, that was his personal item telling who he was. Okay? Well, anyway, he mated with her, and she she went her way, and he went home, and then he sent somebody back there to take it to make payment and get his signet ring back, his staff back. His staff had his genealogy on it. Did you know that? The staff had the whole history of his genealogy on it. They could sit there and tell stories by that staff, what they were, and the signet ring is what they stamped something with. And then his cord or his belt. She had all of this.
A deposit.
Yeah, that was the deposit. He couldn't find her. Well, he said, unless I'd be ashamed, just forget about it. In the meanwhile, his daughter-in-law turns up pregnant, and he's going to have her killed. So she goes before him, and she said, who did this thing? And she said, the man who owns this signet ring and has this belt and this staff. And he said, forget it. He said, she's more righteous than I am. And that's where Jesus came through that woman. This is Perez. All right. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. All right. So it was real important to have children. Okay? Real important to have children. Even these harlots, it was important for them to have a child. Okay? That woman, Tamar, would have had nobody to support her. She didn't have a child. And she had to trick her father-in-law. And of course, it was a child. She brought forth a child. And that would be one of the links in the Messianic links. All right? Now let's go on a little bit further. Marilyn, are you still over there? See, this is really important, okay?
18.
Yes.
Yeah.
It happened on the third day after I gave birth that this woman also gave birth to a child, and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, only the two of us in the house. This woman's son died in the night because she lay on
Okay,
him.
she rolled over on the baby and killed it. What's it say there, Joanne, and yours?
But her baby died during the night when she rolled over on it.
Okay, she rolled over on the baby and killed it.
Mine says overlay.
That's what happens. That's what happens sometimes. Have you ever seen pigs or sheep or anything else, or well, not so much sheep, but pigs or dogs or kittens? Sometimes they'll lay on one of them and kill it. All right, that's what happened to this child. The mother rolled over on it and killed it. Okay, smothered it to death or squished it. So that's what happened to the baby. All right, Linda, are you there in the next one?
So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, while your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom.
Don't you think that she'd know who her child was? That's what we call, now we call it what? Bonding. Bonding. Why, if you had two babies in the same house, would you know which one yours was, Anna? How about you, Linda? If there's two babies in the house, I don't care if they were born at the same time, you'd know which your child was. All right? Number 21 now. Go ahead, Linda.
And when I rose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed he was not my son whom I had born.
Okay, now this woman realizes she's been tricked. Okay, she's been tricked. And number 22, Brother John.
Then the other woman said, no, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son. And the first woman said, no, but the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son. Thus they spoke before the king.
They were arguing before the king. This is mine, 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 mine. Because this is very important. This is the difference between life and death, maybe. You know that back at this period of time in history, when a woman had a child, it could be a life and death situation every time. The mortality rate, and more women, there was a lot of children died in childbirth. Did you know that? A lot of children died. Have you ever known anybody in your family that had one stillborn or died soon after they died? Any of them? Brother Bill, Marilyn, Brother Rex, anybody in your
I
family?
can't think of anybody in my family, but I've heard plenty about it.
All right, you've heard plenty about it. Anna?
I've heard about it.
Yeah, you heard about it. How about women? How many women in your family died in childbirth? Marilyn? Your grandmother,
My great-grandmother.
your great-grandmother died in childbirth, or right after Brother Bill.
My grandmother,
Yeah.
on my mom's side.
Yeah. A lot of women died in childbirth. It was a scary thing. I mean, they needed to have children, all right, but it was a natural risk involved. A very natural risk involved. In Europe, it was safer if you didn't go to a doctor or a hospital to have a child than if you had one at home. Did you know it? It was risky business to have a child in England and in France and stuff in those big cities. If you're out in the country, if you have a child, you're a whole lot safer because you'd have it at home. You know why?
Probably the rats in those cities.
There's a lot of rats. Because the doctors were going from woman to woman, not washing their hands, and causing an infection, and the woman would die of infection.
That's what happened in the Civil War. The doctors didn't
Yep.
wash up between patients.
They didn't wash up between patients, and they killed different patients because of the infections. All right? It was very risky business to have a child. Okay? A woman, every time she had a child, she risked her life. The child was at risk, and so was the woman. Okay? So they didn't know whether they was going to have another child or not. They didn't know whether she'd make it to the next child or if they could have a child. Now already her child died, so she is willing to lie and try to get this other woman's child so she'll have an heir to take care of her. Okay? That's what the whole story is. Why in the world were they lying? Why did this woman do this? Brother David, number 23.
And the king said, the one says, this is my son who lives, and your son is the dead one. And the other says, no, but your son is the dead one, my son is the living one. Then the king said, bring me a sword. So they brought a sword before the king, and the king said, divide the living child in two, give half to one and half to the other.
All right, now, this is it. Brother Brett, I'm going to let you read the punchline.
Yeah?
You get the punchline.
Okay, I forget which one we're on here. Okay, go, 25?
Yeah, 26.
26. Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it.
Okay. Joanne.
Better interpretation of that.
That there. That's King James. Just leave it with him. Brett,
Then the woman who really was the mother of the living child and who loved him very much cried out, oh no, my lord, give her the child, please do not kill him. But the other woman said, all right, he will be neither yours nor mine, divide him between us.
all right. Now, in all reality, any guy with half a brain and one eye could be able to figure this situation out. How about you, Brother David? If you didn't read any further than this, what would you think?
Pretty smart guy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What would you think? Do you figure out which one it is? You figure out which one is the guilty woman and which one is the real child?
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. Solomon made a pretty good decision there because they spilled the beans. The real mother did not want her child killed. The other one didn't matter. I wouldn't want to be sharing the house with that woman. That's a bad woman. Okay. Brother David.
So the king answered and said, give the first woman the living child, by no means kill him. She is his mother. And all Israel heard of the judgments which the king had rendered, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice.
All right. Boy, this is great. Now in chapter 4. In chapter 4, and now King Solomon was king over all Israel, and these were his officials. And it names all the officials that he had in chapter 4 there. And it goes all down to number 21. All right? Go down to verse number 21. Now Solomon ruled all the kingdoms from the river to the land of the Philistines, to the border of Egypt, and they brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. What do you think this is the type of? The millennial reign of Christ. In the millennial reign, how many feasts or tabernacles are going to be in the millennial reign? How many feasts of tabernacles? Shabbat. Yeah.
Shabbat.
How many feasts of tabernacles?
It'd be one a year, won't it?
One a year for how many years?
1,000 years.
1,000 years. 1,000 years of feast or tabernacles. going and bringing their goods. Now, why did they go in for the Feast of Tabernacles? What was the Feast of Tabernacles like? What was it like? What time of the year was it? It was after the harvest, wasn't it? And how would they build their little tabernacles?
Tent?
Their little tents. How did they build them? What did they build them out of? What did they cover them with?
Yeah,
A skin egg.
skin.
What?
Camel goat skin.
No.
A skin egg.
Huh? No. What did they cover them with?
Skin-
What did they put over the covering?
No, some
They would
kind of
put
straw,
poles up.
wasn't it?
What?
Some kind of straw?
They would put corn stalks, wheat stalks, not corn stalks, they didn't have corn. Wheat stalks. They would use palm leaves and all
Oh, you
kinds
mean
of stuff.
permanent dwellings?
No, not permanent, right? They'd only stay in this during the Feast of Tabernacles. They would put and they would hang all types of fruit.
Yeah.
Huh?
Fruit and the palm leaves. and
Palm leaves and the fruit.
branches.
The branches. The palm branches, and what do they go, and they'll have fruit. When they're in the Feast of Tabernacles right now over there in Israel, they'll be carrying a palm branch and some kind of fruit
Yeah.
in their hand. What it is, it's a Thanksgiving feast.
Is that the first fruits?
Well, not the first fruit.
Because that's for Hindus
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
This is the Feast of Tabernacles, all right? Because God has provided everything that you need. And you're showing and demonstrating what God has provided for you. And when they, in the millennial reign, when they come in here in the millennial reign, they're going to be the Feast of Tabernacles, because God is blessing the land. God is blessing the land is going to be like paradise again. All right? It's like paradise. The word in Greek for the Garden of Eden is what?
Paradiso.
Paradiso. Thank you, brother. It's
Guarded
paradiso.
Guarded pleasure park.
That's right, guarded pleasure park. That's what, and it's going to be like paradise here. Paradise on earth. I think the Jehovah's Witnesses had a book out called Paradise on Earth. Paradise on Earth. Because it's going to be a paradise on earth. But I don't want to be in the millennial reign on the earth. I want to tell you that.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to be there. What are you going to have to do to be there? You're going to have to go through the tribulation period. All right? There's going to be two groups there, Gentiles and Jews. The whole tribulation period is basically to bring the Jew back to God so that he can be his administrator during that 1,000-year reign. The Jews are going to be the administrators on the earth for that 1,000-year reign. All right? Now let's go on down here and look. Solomon ruled all the kingdom. And Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cores of fine flour and 60 cores of meal. All right? And that's 30 times a bushel.
Mine says 150 bushels of flour and 300 bushels of meal.
That's right. 150 bushels of flour, and say that, read it out again.
150 bushels of flour and 300 bushels of meal.
Okay. And 300 bushels of meal. All right. That's good. And 10 fat oxen. Now what is an ox? Now, I want to tell you something here. When they come to mules and oxes in the Old Testament, is a whole lot different what a mule and an ox is today. Okay? What's a mule?
Cross.
A cross what?
With a donkey and a
A
horse.
donkey and a horse. Now, did he forbid that in his law? Yes, he did. He forbid it. So they weren't mules. What they were great big donkeys. When we talk about mules, when the king's sons were riding mules, they were riding donkeys, big jacks, big donkeys.
Giant jacks.
Okay, big ones. All right, and that's the ones they would cross, in America, then they would cross these big jacks with draft horses, and that's when they had the big mules here. But back in this time, there weren't really any mules, all right, and there weren't really any oxen. What is basically an ox? What is an ox?
You said the donkey and the horse is a mule, you said?
A cross between a donkey and a horse and a mule. What is an ox?
But that would have to be the mule and something else, right? Or
No.
Mule
Now,
doesn't
now we're on a
graze.
different subject now.
Mules are infertile.
Mules are infertile. They can't reproduce. God did not want any animal not be able to reproduce. If you had a dog or a cat, if you had a sheep or a goat, or if you had a cow, you could not neuter it. You could not neuter any animal. Did you know that? You could not, God forbid, the neutering of any animal. They had a right to reproduce. Okay? In Israel, they could not neuter them. And what is an ox? It's a steer. It's a neutered bull. So, that's an ox. But these are not neutered bulls. This is a big bull. Okay? They're a great big draft animal is what they were. An oxen was a full-grown draft animal, but it was a bull. It could have been a cow or a bull, but it was a full-grown. It wasn't a baby calf or anything. This is a full-grown animal, probably 4 or 5 years old. How long do they usually last in a dairy?
3 years.
3 to 5 years. Okay, 5 years pretty much maximum anymore. And the meat that you're getting, you know, did any of you eat any real tough meat the last year or so? You go down and buy you a New York steak and it tastes like it was a round steak or something?
Yeah, that's true.
That's because it was dairy. That's 5-year-old cows. 3, 4, 5-year-old cows.
The bigger
They
the
dumped a
oxen,
whole
the
lot of
more
them on the market.
valuable they were.
Huh?
The bigger the oxen, the more valuable they were.
Yeah, because they were draft animals. Not for eating, but draft. Okay? Now, they were going to sacrifice Solomon. Now, they're going to have these fat oxen. And so they fatten them up. Where does the meat get tender? This is a full-grown cow now, but how do you get the meat tender? Even these, if they get a dairy cow out there at 4 or 5 years old, what do they do to it to make it tender?
Corn feed it.
They corn feed it, they fat feed, they feed it carrots, they feed it potatoes, they feed it something with a lot of sugar in it, and it makes it fat. And the fat is marbling of the meat is what makes it tender. Okay. So here's a great big animal now, a big full-grown animal. This isn't a calf. This is a full-grown. This big. This thing probably weighs 1,000 pounds. Okay. This is not a little 300-pound calf. Okay? 10 fat oxen. Pasture-fed oxen. All right? 10 fat oxen and then 20 pasture-fed oxen. This is in one day, isn't it? And Solomon's provision for one day? All right? 10 fat oxen. That's 10 fattened oxen. And then 20 pasture-fed ones out on the out grazing in the pasture. Okay? I wonder who got them. Probably the servants.
Now, that would have been younger oxen.
Huh?
That would have been younger oxen out there that are pasture fed.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been big enough yet to.
But, well, the ones, I'll tell you what, these were the common man's food. This was his servants. Everybody in the king's house, he's going to get these fattened oxen. The ones that have been force-fed, basically. You know, they used to take and force-feed goats and cattle. I mean, they still do. These little veal, you know, these baby calves, you know, that they butcher and everything, they force-feed them. And they used to take and put geese, and they'd stick them in a cage, and just their head come out, and they'd force-feed those things so they'd have great big livers and gizzards. All right? He used to force-feed them. So this is what we call fed out. There are 10 fed out oxen and then 20 pasture-fed oxen and 100 sheep beside deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened fowl. The fattened fowl are like the geese and the ducks and stuff and the chickens.
Now, is that to feed his whole household or what?
That was evidently for the whole palace. Everybody that's worked, all the workers and everything else, this is what it took to feed them. Maybe some of them had big appetites. You ever know anybody could eat a lot?
That probably was what he also paid them with, too.
Well, that was part, you know, that part of their, they had to work so many, we're going to find out later on. Everybody had to work for the king. Everybody had to work for the king. A certain amount. All the people had to. That's part of the taxes that he levied. For he had dominion over everything west of the river. All right? What's that river there? West of the river. What river is that?
Tigris and Euphrates?
Okay, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Basically, the Euphrates from Tifsah, that is, even to Gaza, over all the kings west of the river. All right, what river is that? What does it say there in your translation, Joanne? Does it have
Euphrates.
Euphrates. Okay. And he had peace on all sides round about him, peace. Again, every time you see that, this reminds us of the millennial reign. So Judah and Israel lived in safety, every man under his own vine and his fig tree. What is this a type of? Again,
Christ?
type of the millennial reign. That's where it says that they live underneath their own fig tree, and Zechariah and Micah and all of this, Jeremiah. So Judah and Israel. Now who's Judah and who's Israel? Remember, Israel was divided, wasn't it? Into Judah and Israel. It was divided before. And Saul
There's the one part, David.
Saul and David. And finally David united them all. And then his son went down against him and divided Israel again. What son was that? Remember that? The one he loved so much.
Oh, Solomon. Solomon.
What?
Absalom?
Absalom. Peace to the father. He wasn't much peace to his father, was he? Okay. And he divided Israel, and then David combined Israel again. Now he gives combined Israel to Solomon. It's combined. Okay? Let's go on a little bit. Everything west of the river. He had peace on all sides. So Judah and Israel lived in safety, every man under his own vine and fig tree, and from Dan to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. And Solomon had, what do we have here? 40,000 stalls of horses. Where was this place? Megiddo.
Ghetto.
That's where his stables were, was in Megiddo.
Place of the ghetto. He said the
Megiddo.
ghetto.
All
That
right?
means he had 20,000.
40,000 stalls. Now, what did God tell all the kings of Israel from the Old Testament time? Do not multiply horses for yourself. Horses is a what?
Warrior horse.
That's a war horse. Did he really have to fight any battle? No.
His name means peace.
He just wanted horses as pretty much a status symbol, okay? 40,000 stalls for horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. And those deputies provided for King Solomon all who came to King Solomon's table, each in his month. They left nothing lacking. The one thing we might say about this, to kind of back him up, is that if you're going to be at peace, you've got to have power to be at peace, don't you? You have to have a certain amount of backing. So if he had any reason, excuse for having these, it's because he had a great empire. I mean, if he didn't have all these people, then maybe he would have trouble. Okay? And then it says that they also brought barley and straw for the horses and swift steeds to the place where it should be, and each according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment, and the breadth of mind like the sand which is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom surpassed all the wisdom of all the sons of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. And he was wiser than all the men. Then Ethan and Ezra, the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Calcol, and Dardah, and sons of Mahal, and his fame was known in all the surrounding nations. And he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even to the hyssop that grows on the wall. And this is what we call botany. He was a botanist. And he spoke of all the animals. Now, what is animals? Study of animals. Biology. Okay? He was a botanist and a biologist. And birds, what do you call that? Ethnology, isn't it? Birds and creeping things. And fish. And men came from all the peoples, and to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. So there we finished chapter number 4. We'll start on chapter number 5, and we're going to start seeing how they're getting ready to build the temple. All right, we're going to build the temple. Thank you for your attention. Go out and do something eternal. Brother Rex.
What is there he spoke of trees from the cedar that was in Lebanon, even there's a house up that grows on the wall. What is that?
Okay, from the great big botany. He was a botanist. All the way from the big trees down to the little bitty herbs.
It's just an herb growing on the wall.
Just from everything. He knew all about all plants. He was a botanist and he was a biologist, and he studied fish and he studied fowl, and he, in other words, it's saying that he was a scientist. He was a true scientist. All right? A true scientist. Brother Bill,
I'm ready.
are you ready to come up here? Okay.
Okay. Jim, also, I'll tell you guys something. Jim was talking about the dairy cows, the meat. You know that you buy that fertilizer nowadays, you know there's nothing in fertilizer that's good for your yard. They feed these cows on such a high-tech diet that all of the nutrients are absorbed out of it. The only thing that fertilizer will do for your yard, it will add heat, like if you're growing Bermuda brand new stuff, but if you roll till it up and lose them